everybody. Welcome to the Overdrive Digital Show. I am Soini Dutt. We're here to answer all your motoring queries live. So just jot them down in the comment section and we'll answer them shortly. The list of electric cars in India is only increasing, and now Volvo has brought in the XC40 Recharge. Given their legacy in India, the brand is looked at as a luxury car maker that has broken all price barriers, bringing premium quality and performance at an attractive pricing. Here's more.
Late last year, Volvo India announced its intentions to bring down a battery electric vehicle, a fully electric vehicle to its Indian market. And that's exactly what we have here on our first drive experience today. This is the XC40 Recharge. Well, it's been quite late in coming because of course the semiconductor shortage and supply chain issues, but the XC40 is finally here. Volvo India has said that they will announce prices for the XC40 Recharge in the month of July, and of course deliveries will begin soon thereafter. But here we are experiencing this on the Delhi, or rather the Gurgaon Jaipur highway. Let's see what the XC40 Recharge has to offer. The XC40 Recharge's platform, of course, is a little longer than the standard ICE powered XC40. It's about 15 mm longer, and this is to accommodate the battery pack. However, the XC40 is also about 500 kilos heavier because of that same battery pack compared to the internal combustion engine XC40, its petrol counterpart. 2.2 tons, or rather 2,200 kilos, that's essentially the curb weight of the XC40, which makes it fairly heavy. Nonetheless, at about 4.4 meters, this is a fairly compact SUV with a fairly compact wheelbase, and that essentially gives you great ergonomics, gives you good dynamic abilities, which I will come to in a little while. The XC40 Recharge uses a 78 kilowatt hour battery pack that's placed again in the floor pan like most conventional electric vehicles. Volvo claims a range in excess of about 420 kilometers as per WLTP cycles, but in real world conditions and from what we've seen, I can expect a range of about 300 to 350 kilometers in Indian conditions, which isn't bad at all. It's pretty impressive for an SUV of this order.
The Volvo XC40 Recharge has a peak output of 408 horsepower, combining two 204 horsepower electric motors. Each of these motors controls the front and rear axles respectively, giving the XC40 Recharge permanent all-wheel drive. Torque is a massive 660 Newton meters. This gives it blistering pace. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour coming in just under 5 seconds.
On most other luxury EVs, you do get a lot of information on the screen, on the instrumentation screen right behind the steering wheel. But Volvo's kept it fairly simple. You can see the state of charge. Currently, I've got about 70% of battery left. However, it won't tell you the range, nor does it show you what exactly is happening within the system. Now, to access or to understand range, you essentially go back into the multi-information display, and you've got an app that's a range assistant, and effectively that tells you a host of information, that gives you a host of information. Range is one of them, the amount of battery or the charge being consumed to power those two motors. It also gives you, well, driver assistance features such as explaining to you what your driving style is like. Volvo claims that the XC40 Recharge can be charged at a DC charging station with the charging speeds up to about 150 kilowatts. Volvo will also provide wallbox home charging systems, and those will charge at 11 kilowatt on an AC connection. With that charger, of course, it will take you about 7.5 to 8 hours to get a full charge. The XC40 Recharge, well, it uses an independent suspension system with McPherson struts at the front end with coil springs and a multi-link axle at the rear. The ride quality is quite impressive, but we are on the Gurgaon-Neemrana highway. We're driving to Neemrana, and this is a fairly smooth highway. And the XC40 Recharge, well, it absorbs all surface imperfections quite impressively. Nonetheless, you do know that the ride quality is stiff, typically European for that matter. But what you get in return as well, as a benefit of course, is fantastic dynamics. Just as simple as it is to use, there are a few quirks that the XC40 Recharge has, which takes a bit getting used to. Case in example, you've got a recuperative or a regenerative mode, which uses, or rather gives you that one pedal drive feel. But to activate it, you have to go through the central menu on the multi-information display screen, the tablet right here on the dashboard. And those are a couple of menus away from the home screen. So, well, you just have to get into it. It does not have a one-touch system that activates that one pedal feel. The braking effort that you get once you activate that one pedal feel, well, is pretty aggressive. And what you have to learn is that to activate it, or rather to make that sensation a little calmer, a little gentler, you need to gradually reduce throttle pressure. Now this takes some getting used to. It's a matter of habit, and habit that you will have to build in. But without multiple level regenerative action like you get in, let's say, the Audi e-tron, it can be initially a little uncomfortable. That said, with that one pedal drive, you can see fairly good regeneration happening into the system. Now, Volvo hasn't exactly indicated, but I'm assuming you can recuperate anywhere between 10 to 15% of energy into the XC40 Recharge, which essentially extends or gives you a little bit more range than what you'd expect. The XC40 Recharge also comes with a full suite of connected technologies, and this, like some of Volvo's other SUVs, the XC60 or the S90, well, it uses Google services. So you get a complete array of Google services, which means you can access applications like Spotify and various other functions as well for entertainment or for information purposes. Now it's got advanced driver assistance systems, you've got lane keep assist, and you've got adaptive cruise control, ABS, ESP, traction control, multiple airbags, and of course hill descent control as well. So the XC40 Recharge, well, it's a promising SUV, a promising electric SUV, and gauging from what Volvo's done in India so far, where they've got some brilliant products, well spec'd and at great pricing, I believe the XC40 Recharge, well, could also be one of those promising candidates to be a big success story for Volvo India in this market. However, that price announcement is still a few months away. Nonetheless, I'm quite excited. I think this is a great showcase of what the future holds in store for luxury premium SUVs. There's definitely another success story in the making.
Hi, Bert. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sohini.
Bert, we'll directly dive into the question. In fact, Ravi Patel says that XC40 is overpriced and he thinks that 40 lakhs is the best price. What do you think?
Well, Ravi, I'm not sure what would exactly constitute best price, but if you had to go, seeing what competitors have positioned the vehicles like in the same segment, what I can tell you is that there are a few other competitors who are more expensive. There are some that are just as equally competitive for that matter. I mean, if I had to just take this XC40, would compare against, apples to apples, would compare against, let's say, the Range Rover Evoque, and the Evoque is substantially more expensive. So, there is what Volvo has attempted to do in the past also, and I'll give them due credit for this, is that they've priced their products fairly attractively for what they have to offer in those terms. They've got great packages. They're good to drive cars, well sorted out ride quality, comfort in that sense, well spec interiors. The cars look fantastic. I cannot doubt that at all. The cars look absolutely amazing.
and they all come fully loaded with everything that you could think about. And I think even with the XC40 Recharge, for that matter, I don't think they will, that factor is diminished. In fact, from one of the aspects that I haven't really spoken about in this story is about how the interiors, when they come out of this car, for consumers, they will be completely recyclable. So you're using more recyclable materials inside that cabin compared to the cars that we drove. These were initial media cars that they've been using for homologation and other and marketing and trading purposes. And these had, of course, some elements in there which are not recyclable. But for to get that sustainability perception out in the market, or rather to build that that feeling of sustainability, Volvo is also kind of making it almost 100% recyclable from the inside, for that matter. So in that sense, I think they're doing a fairly good job. And that said, I still expect the price will be expensive for this. I would assume anywhere between a 15 to 20 lakh premium over the ICE for the XC40 Recharge. But let's see. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Hope that it's a good value proposition. Even if they manage to get it out at about the 60 to 65 lakhs, maybe 70 lakh bracket, it's still a very good value SUV at this point in time, at least until prices for batteries come down and make them more affordable, for that matter. But given that 78 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is a fairly large battery pack in an SUV of this dimension, you have to keep in mind that the EQC, again, the EQC is just similarly spec. It's got a similar battery pack in that vehicle. It's more expensive, substantially more expensive. The range is not as great. So all of those, you're getting a much more valuable proposition with the XC40.
All right. And Bhargav wants to know, does the XC40 Recharge make a strong case for itself over the e-tron, I-Pace and the EQC, and will it have to rival the e-tron Q4 later when it comes?
Well, it'll certainly have to, Bhargav will certainly have to rival the e-tron Q4 when it comes later on. Does it make a strong case for itself over the e-tron, the existing e-tron, the IPS and the EQC? Absolutely, because you're looking at a vehicle that is much smaller, much more compact, but with as much range, as large a battery pack as all of those others. And that range is very, very important. Uh, 350 kilometers, I think, will be a no-brainer for the XC40 Recharge. On our driving cycles, we drove for roughly about 240 or 250 kilometers, and we still had about 150 kilometers, 130 kilometers additionally in balance when we handed the car back to Volvo after our drive. So that's a substantial range, that we got from the XC40. Keep in mind, on some of our drives in the past, we have also been getting, from the larger cars, the e-tron, all of them. Of course, the e-tron's got a much, much larger battery pack. Even the I-Pace, for that matter, has got a larger battery pack than the XC40 Recharge. The range has been just about as much. So I think Volvo is doing a phenomenal job in that sense. I do think, however, this is just a start for them, and in the future, what you will see essentially coming out over here also is that the XC40 Recharge, or at least all the recharge vehicles that come out from the recharge division from Volvo, they will have lighter materials being used so that the size of the battery, or at least the range that it offers to the weight of the car, that ratio will be better balanced, and probably range will increase because of this.
All right. We have another question, not about the Volvo. Vishnu wants to know, does the Audi Q8 Celebration Edition have air suspension? Is it a better buy than the Q7 technology? And priority is ride comfort, mostly chauffeur driven, doesn't need a seven-seater.
Well, the Q8, Vishnu, is similar to the Q7 for that matter, but the Q7, the new updated Q7, of course, the technologies in that have improved quite a bit, quite significantly. There's a lot more that you get in there, including ADAS for that matter, which you don't get in the Q8. Where ride quality is concerned, and from what I recollect on the Q8, it is stiff. Certainly, it does not have the finesse or the comfort that the Q7 offers. The Q7 is one of their flagship SUVs, keep in mind, for luxury and comfort. The Q8 had this slightly sporty suspension, but also balancing out some amount of comfort. Nonetheless, the Q8 certainly felt stiffer, but also felt more dynamic. The new Q7, which I drove recently, or at least a few months ago, well, it feels a lot more inclined towards delivering, or rather taking its passengers along in the utmost comfort. It feels a little soft, it feels a little plush, and that is, I think, one of the priority areas that Audi has worked on the Q7. So if priority is ride comfort for you, you want to be using the back seat, then I think the Q7 is the one that you need to go in for.
All right. Sri Karan says he is looking for an MUV below 15 lakh rupees. Please suggest if the Karens or the updated XL6 would be a better choice.
Shrikran, I would actually ask you to come back to us with this question in probably about another few weeks, maybe a month at the most, because we will be driving an updated XL6 very, very soon. And we will have an opinion to offer you between the XL6 and the Currents. Keep in mind the price difference between the two also. Right now, there is a price difference between these two products. The Currents is certainly more premium than the XL6. But what those updates are on the XL6, whether those will be feature updates, comfort updates, luxury updates, mechanical updates, we are not entirely sure at this point in time. So let's just wait for a little while longer. Give us about a month's time. I think somewhere towards the mid of May, I think, or end of beginning of May is where the Maruti drive is beginning. So we'll have an opinion for you very, very shortly on this.
And talking about upcoming drives, Sughosh wants to know any idea when you guys are going to be driving the Virtus? We know the launch is going to be at the end of May.
Sugosh, in just a few weeks from now, just a few more weeks from now, I think roughly about another 3 weeks is when we will have an opinion for you on the Volkswagen Virtus as well.
All right. Mangesh wants to know, are dual clutch transmissions that hard to master with Polo riding off into the sunset? Not many options left in the segment. The ones from other manufacturers are not that exciting to drive.
Uh, so I'm not sure what exactly you mean, Mangesh, by asking me if dual clutch transmissions are that hard to master. Whether you're asking me from the manufacturer's perspective, whether it's hard to manufacture, or whether it's from the consumer side, whether it's hard to understand how to use those transmissions. But for all purposes, yes, on the manufacturer side, it's a complex transmission and expensive transmission to provide. From a consumer side, from a viewpoint, it's a fairly simple transmission. It works like any other automatic transmission with paddle shifters. If you've got that as an option, even better, because it gives you that manual mode feeling as well. And the one, of course, the one big advantage is that the shift times are much quicker, much faster. But having said that, I mean, with the Polo having being discontinued and only this last version, the Legend version, which is essentially the GTTSI with a lot more cosmetic updates on it, uh, being available in the market at this point in time. I think a lot of attention will now shift towards the Virtus because that has got essentially a GT version as well at this point in time. So it's not just the calipers, the red, the colored calipers that it's got on the car, but it's also the 1.5 liter engine with better performance, more power, and of course the dual clutch transmission. All of that is going to be there in the Virtus. So essentially, what Volkswagen also is hoping to see is that a lot of its consumers shift or rather move at this point in time from the Polo to the Virtus. Keep in mind the wheelbase and of course the length for the Virtus is definitely much longer, but the wheelbase also is larger, slightly larger than what you get on the Polo. But sometime in the future, I do believe that Volkswagen will certainly come out with another car in the same segment as the hatchback, as the Polo for that matter, whether it be an exact Polo replacement or something new, maybe electric. We don't know at this point in time what that intent is, but we will, I'm assuming, see some news coming forward in that direction before the year ends.
All right. Akash Rughani wants to know the Tata Harrier or the MG Hector. His daily commute is 100 kilometers.
Ooh, very tough. Very interesting also. You're looking for a Hector or a Harrier. Now, the one thing going on for both these cars is ride quality and ride comfort. And if you've got a daily 100-kilometer run, then I think in that sense, the Harrier or the Hector would work admirably. Very, very impressive in that sense. So ride quality is great, and that's one of the biggest advantages that either of these have got. If I had to go by public opinion and general opinion that I see out every day, the Harrier certainly looks a lot more impressive, and people are gaga about the way it looks and the kind of the stance that it has adopted, the visual relief that it provides. It is very impressive looking in that sense. Not to say that I haven't seen some very impressive looking Hectors as well, but these are aftermarket packages that a lot of consumers have bolted onto the car to make it look a little nicer, a little more attractive. Um, well, you could either go with either of these two, or depending if you do not want the multiple seating option, then well, there are other choices also. There is the Creta as well. There is the Seltos also, and they are better overall as products with also better resale value. Now, I'm not saying that Tata Harrier hasn't improved over some time over the last few years. Tata Motors has at least improved. Some of those changes are not employed in the Harrier at this point in time. They were incorporated into the Safari, but the Harrier did not incorporate all those changes. So I'm not entirely convinced that it is either of these two cars. But if I had to, really suggest something to you between the Harrier or the Hector, I would say the Harrier for the ride comfort and the space. Again, you got those three rows of seating. The Hector, because it's got a lot of technology on it. It's got some fantastic features as well. Plenty of features on the Hector. So if features is something that you are keen on, then the Hector is it. Otherwise, if you're looking for a SUV with good ride quality, comfort, just a simple, no fuss, and comfortable driving experience. Don't expect the Harrier to get you anywhere in a rush. If you're in a rush to get to a meeting or somewhere, the Harrier is not going to do that for you. Neither is the Hector, when it's got that dual clutch transmission. I thought it was pretty slow when I drove it as my long termer for a while. But either of these cars will get you there in brilliant comfort.
All right, getting to the biggest talking point from this week about the Tata Curvv. Manish Pandey wants to know, is this new Tata Curvv a Sierra or Nexon coupe?
So Manish, the Tata Curvv is essentially built on the Nexon platform. Okay, it's an extension or an evolution of the Nexon platform, and that is what we're seeing right now. The wheelbase has increased, the length has increased, it's grown more robust in that sense. And whatever you would have seen on social media, or any of the press releases and the information, the first look stories that we put out as well. It is not an entirely new platform. Tata Motors wanted to retain some of that family resemblance, and which is why it's got certain hints of the Nexon in it. If you look at the shoulder line, for instance, you will observe that it looks pretty similar to what the Nexon has got. That chrome strip running across from the A pillar all the way up to the C pillar. It's got this fantastic coupe-like form. Okay, it looks very impressive in the flesh. What I'd give it, I'm not entirely convinced of it being as good looking as it is imposing. It's got a very large footprint. It looks big, and when I say it looks big, I would say it looks Audi Q8 big kind of a thing. So it's very in your face. It's a very bold design. What Tata Motors has also mentioned and said to us is that a lot of this will be carried forward to production form. Certain elements like that rearview mirror that you just saw, for instance, that may not make it into production. That will be conventional mirrors. But Tata Motors is still working on trying to see how they can be as aerodynamic as possible. Similarly, even those alloy wheels and tires that you're seeing on this, these are purely for the concept car. And when I say that, I mean that in terms of size. These are 20-inch alloys and tires on them. These are P0s, performance tires. But the production ready car will have 18-inch wheels and tires, right? So they will drop down the interests of enhancing comfort and giving out better ride quality as well. 18 inches, also keep that in mind, is still not a generalized size. It's still larger than the most accepted sizes, which are anywhere between 15 to 17 inches for most vehicles in India, because those sizes are also easily accessible, they're easily available. 18 inches becomes a little tricky for any owner to find the right tire if something goes wrong, for that matter. But yes, with the curve coming in, and whether the name curve will still be retained at the time of launch, I'm not sure. But with this SUV, essentially, Tata Motors is certainly on a roll. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with eventually. But like they've said, like they've assured us, that a majority of things that you see in the car, except don't discount the interiors, what you saw, but exterior wise, a lot of it will go into production.
But what about the digital screens that we saw? The tablet-like
Yeah, even
screens
those,
in
even,
data?
even those will change. Those could change. They could retain some of those elements in there. But again, right now this is conceptual. Before they go into production, they will have to get validation done, and on that validate during that validation, a lot of these things on the interiors, for that matter, especially where passengers are concerned, would change because of safety concerns, safety reasons. So it's quite possible that some of the screens might change. We don't know what the situation will be like, but I would assume some things will change for sure.
All right. Lazy Wanderer is curious to know whatever happened to the beautiful Tata e-Vision concept. Does Tata have any plans for it in the near future?
Well, like any other manufacturer globally, Lazy Wanderer concepts and ideas keep changing, initiatives keep changing, and Tata Motors is only keeping track of what's happening currently, and they're trying the best to be up to date and at least prepared for what the future may bring, as in terms of challenges for them as a manufacturer, and from the perspective of consumer demands as well. So the next generation, and what they're essentially doing is now they're working on Gen 2 for their electrification plans. And it's not just for powertrain, for that matter, even for body styles. for chassis, for the connected technology, for various other electrification systems. Like the Curve will have V2V, which is vehicle to vehicle charging, which means you can take one curve and using the power from that charge another curve in an emergency. So all of these things can be done. And of course, like I said, they're working on generation 2. So even those screens, like Sony just mentioned, the multi-information display, all of those screens and what they'll be presenting and the way they'll be presenting will all be generation 2. How effective is generation 2? I think we can only pass judgment, or we can only comment on this closer to the date of launch, when we actually drive and see the car in the flesh, the production ready vehicle. This is still a concept at this point in time. Keep that in mind. We're still 2 years away from production and launch for this car. So 2 years could be 3 years, maybe a year and a half. We're not too sure, but let's just keep fingers crossed and see what happens. But yeah, Tata e-vision concept, no significant plans for it in the future as such.
All right, Vishnu Desai wants to know, is the Q7 a better buy than the XC90 as far as ride quality is concerned? Any other SUV within a crore which has the best ride quality?
No, Vishnu. To me, the XC90 is a firm favorite. There is absolutely nothing to compare to that. The quality of materials, the comfort and luxury, the space, the design, the aesthetics, the ride comfort, the performance, you name it. And the XC90, I mean, is something that I've enjoyed thoroughly. I've had several friends who bought them simply because the car is just that fantastic. Brilliant car. I'm hoping the next generation Q7, not the updated one. The Q7 updated also is a phenomenal SUV for that matter. Brilliant, work of engineering, but it still does not come close to where the XC90 is. Keep that in mind. And as far as ride quality is concerned, the XC90 is the bump.
All right. Chandar wants to know, when will the new Honda City Hybrid launch in India?
When will Balachandran, or will the new Honda City Hybrid be launched in India?
Oh,
Because
sorry, will
yes,
the new Honda City Hybrid
the
launch?
new Honda City Hybrid is going to be launched. The HEV is going to be launched in the country. We will be driving it very, very soon. By the end of this month, for that matter, we've got the drives lined up for the Honda City Hybrid. So yes, I am expecting an announcement with prices to happen in the month of May for the Honda City Hybrid.
Okay, here's another question from Sughosh. Jeep Compass versus the Taigun, which one's the sharpest around the bends and by approximately how much? And I think he has a follow-up question. And does the lack of paddle shifters or drive modes, from what I've heard, a slow ZF9 speed that makes it not enjoyable for enthusiastic driving, or is it good enough?
Well, yes, the ZF 9 speed, the standard torque converter for that matter, Sugosh, is not all that impressed. Not, I wouldn't say not impressive. We've used those transmissions in the past. They work brilliantly well. They're extremely reliable. Keep that in mind. The ZF 9 speed boxes are extremely reliable. They're literally bulletproof. And in that sense, they've really worked very, very well. The dual clutch transmissions, of course, are faster, quicker, more inclined towards enthusiasts or enthusiastic driving for that matter, because of quicker shift times. Uh, Now, between the Taigun and the Compass, well, where dynamic abilities are concerned, I would hand it over to the Taigun, the Tiguan, sorry, and that certainly works out much better than the Compass. I've driven a Compass in long term. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, but it is one of those cars that you kind of enjoy driving in a straight line, going around corners comfortably. It will still hold, even if you push it hard, it will still hold a good line around the corner. But it's not meant to do that. The again, the Tiguan Taigun debate over here. The Tiguan is where what you're looking at for that matter. The Tiguan will essentially have better dynamic abilities. It's got firmer suspension settings. Body roll is little more control compared to the Compass and what we've seen. The steering is a little light. I'm not too fond of that. But overall, the Tiguan kind of the dynamics are concerned is the one to look at.
All right, Atul Benoy wants to know, what is Tata planning to unveil on 20th and 28th of this month?
Atul, your guess is as good as mine. But what I could tell you, what I could assume on the 20th, what they were expecting to unveil is, I'm assuming, the long range Nexon EV, okay, with the larger battery pack and of course effectively greater range. On the 20th is an all new product. I have no clue whatsoever what it is, but it is a very, very important product for Tata Motors. From what I understand, it is a far more important product than even the Curve. So its ramifications are even more short term, of course, in the sense that we will see more about it much earlier, much quicker than the Curve. But it is an all new product. It is something very exciting. It's a global product. So in that sense, this is some massive effort from Tata Motors. I was hoping to have actually seen it before having seen the Curve, but I mean, whatever it is, it's going to be a busy month. It's going to be a busy end of the month for us, and 28 is that is essentially what they are revealing. What exactly is that product? Whether it's a new electric hatchback, whether it's a new electric SUV, electric MPV, I have no idea.
All right. Suraj wants to know in the XC40 Recharge, since there is no start-stop switch, how do we start and switch off the vehicle?
Very interesting, Suraj. Okay, so this is something absolutely funky, and I didn't speak about it much, or at least didn't show you much about it on the story. But here's how the function works. First of all, there isn't a start-stop switch in the XC40 Recharge. You rightly said that. Instead, what it has got is when you unlock the car, there are sensors in the seat that detect when you sit down and automatically starts off the system. Right. So all you need to do is slide the gear shift lever into drive mode, and the car is ready to drive off. Having said that, there is still one function on the multi information display. Among those menus, there is a function which allows you to hard stop the XC40 Recharge, switch it off entirely. Restarting again, not an issue. You can still do it again. The same thing. The sensors will detect what you when you enter the car or sit and you sit on the driver's seat, and it will be ready to go. Similarly, when you exit the car, also it detects that the pressure has gone off the seat, and it will switch off the motors. When you lock the car, puts it to a complete dead halt or complete dead stop. But there is a function in the multi-information display also that allows you to do a hard stop or a hard start for the XC40 Recharge.
All right. Mangesh wants to know, has after-sales service of Volkswagen brands really improved, especially beyond Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities as advertised in the media and social media platforms?
Well, Mangesh, at some level, I guess what we also do is parrot out what the manufacturer, communicates to us, and to some extent, we have to, work on faith and hope that what the manufacturer says and has claimed is true. And as per those claims, Volkswagen, the group essentially, which includes both Skoda and Volkswagen, have categorically and consistently told us that a lot of their systems, processes, and the issues of the past have all been addressed, and their service, the customer service, outreach programs have improved considerably. So possibly yes. I can't tell you much about how it is outside of tier and one and tier two cities. Maybe there is a story here for us to do and examine and see how these service stations actually operate and they are better. But until and unless I own a car, possibly, or take a car that Volkswagen car, or someone from who's not in a tier two city or tier three for that one, living in a tier three city, goes down to a dealership and narrates an experience to us, we essentially don't have much information about this from on ground itself.
All right. How has Volvo managed to keep the service costs of their cars considerably lower than the Germans? Plus, how has Volvo managed to get lifetime warranty for their spare parts?
Well, Sunil, these are business decisions and can be addressed in multiple ways. Volvo has been quite aggressive in terms of wanting to do good numbers in the country at the same time balance out their profitability, and they have not been too, how would I say it, they're after profits. At the end of the day, it's a business; they need to make profits. But for them, the margins, the smaller margins that they work on, they're happy with that. They wanted to get the name established. Also, keep in mind globally, also for that matter, Volvo does not have large scale, the kind of scales that their German counterparts have for that matter. So everything has got certain boundaries and certain limitations. Volvo can only sell a particular number of cars in the country, and the one way to do that also is to build, or at least to build a kind of relationship with their consumers, uh, offer good pricing, offer good service packages, and of course, where warranty is concerned as well, do that also. Volvo has the confidence in their product, then they what they're delivering to consumers. Maybe the others don't. So I can't hear you. Sorry.
We'll take a very quick break from all these questions, though keep them coming, and we'll get back to you shortly. We'll run through the news, though Bert has already given you a glimpse of the Tata Curvv. We are not able to get into the details of it just yet because the video is embargoed. So on Sunday, we'll get you a proper walk around at 9 a.m. But, just a bit more, Bert, is there something more that you can tell us about the Tata Curvv? We'll run the footage because we've seen the design elements already during the unveil. So is there something more that you can tell us?
So, okay, some of the information that I've gleaned from talking to some of the people in Tata Motors and about the curve essentially is, of course, like I said before, it's an evolution of an existing platform, which is essentially the Nexon platform. The ideology behind this is to effectively do the electric vehicle first and then the ICE powertrain vehicle. This will also, kind of establish them as an EV first manufacturer. The future models will follow will follow a similar line of thought. They will first come out as an EV and then as ICE, which is petrol and diesel uh, packages. Will this be applied to all of their cars that are going to come out in the market? We're not entirely sure. The management hasn't indicated as such. There may be a possibility that some of the cars may not be EV first or may not be EV alone. They may just do it as an ICE, but largely for Tata Motors, the intent is to of course come out as an EV manufacturer henceforth. Now, some interesting thoughts that we also came to know from this is that if design purposes, for instance, if you look at the front grille, what you'll see is some textured work on the lower air dam, on the lower bumper, and this is essentially for the EV right now. When the ICE comes in, that design will change a bit because there will be a mesh grill or a grill in place, whether it's a mesh or some other design, we don't know, but there will be a grill over there, and that will kind of change the look a little bit. Most of the other elements will still stay the same. Now, Tata Motors is also very actively looking at a lot of lightweighting on their cars, which means they could use some exotic materials. Now, that might not mean carbon fiber, but it could mean aluminium in certain places to reduce weight. Again, high strength steels as well, lighter steels, but high strength steels to ensure that the car continues to offer the same safety standards that they are now adhering to and that they're making, as default process with all of their cars. So they are expecting this to be another five-star rated car when it goes in for crash testing. That's their intent. They want to do that. I think it's very commendable for them to do this. The battery pack, what you're looking at now, it will be a fairly large battery pack. I would assume somewhere in the region of about 60, 65, if not larger than that, for the curve because they want to offer, they have said, they're looking at a range that is in excess of 400, or rather between 400 to 500 kilometers WLTP cycle. And that kind of range will only happen if they use lightweight materials and, of course, a reasonably large battery, which would mean 65, 70 kilowatt hour or larger. Does the curve have the space to accommodate those batteries? Absolutely. It's got, like I said, the length has increased, and that length has increased to make sure that the battery pack, a larger battery pack, can be fit inside the vehicle, essentially in the floor pan. Apart from this, it will have some state of the art technology and some features as well. But the big question mark over here is with all of this, where would the vehicle be positioned? It is certainly going to be sitting above the Nexon. Just how far above the Nexon EV for that matter, is anybody's guess at this point in time. We can all speculate, and we would all have our opinions. But I do believe that Tata Motors, given the kind of technologies it is going to put into the curve, the kind of features it is going to have on the curve, this will certainly be one of the most expensive vehicles Tata Motors has ever had to offer to an Indian consumer.
All right, so that's what we have about of the Tata Curvv, and as I mentioned before, we will get you a proper walk around review on Sunday at 9 o'clock. So keep the notifications on. Uh, Moving on, bookings for an updated Maruti Suzuki Ertiga have started for a token amount of 11,000 rupees. While a few minor visual changes are expected, the Ertiga will come with a revamped list of features: a new 1.5-liter dual VVT engine, a new transmission, a new CNG option, and this updated MPV will also have the new Maruti Suzuki Baleno's upgraded 7-inch Smart Play Pro infotainment system. Price announcement is expected on April 15th. Nitin Gadkari has confirmed via a tweet that all cars in India will now have to mandatorily come fitted with 6 airbags as standard. The Minister of Road Transport and Highways has stated that this regulation will cover all vehicles irrespective of their cost or variant. Following this, all vehicles to be manufactured in India post October 1st, 2022 Within the M1 category, will have to have 6 airbags as standard. The Motor Vehicles Act defines the M1 category as a passenger vehicles that weighs less than 3.5 tons and can carry 8 passengers, excluding the driver. And I'll run through the two-wheeler news as well, since Rohit is on leave this week. Suzuki has entered the 250cc motorcycle segment in India by launching its made for India sports adventure tourer, the V-Strom SX at 2.11 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi. This rugged adventure motorcycle is available in 3 color options: the Champion Yellow, Pearl Blaze Orange, and Glass Sparkle Black. The motorcycle comes with features like Suzuki Ride Connect and Easy Start System and USB outlet. We'll, of course, get you more details once Rohit is back on the show next week. If you have any questions regarding this motorcycle, he'll be able to answer them for you. We'll get back to the questions then. All right. What Vishnu wants to know, he wants a second hand car to drive in Mumbai. Budget is 20 lakh rupees. He shortlisted. Sorry, he wants a second
Virtus.
car to drive in Mumbai. The budget is 20 lakh rupees. He shortlisted the Virtus. He's not satisfied with the quality of Volkswagen 2.0 cars. Any other option? He owns an Outlander. Any news about Mitsubishi India?
Uh, well, Vishnu, if your budget is 20 lakhs and if you can, kind of extend it a little bit more, you could possibly get the Octavia. That'd be a good bet. It actually is a significant increase in budget. But apart from that, if you're looking for a sedan, to be honest, there really isn't much in terms of options in this segment. Even the Slavia is the only other option in this segment. You've got the new Honda City Hybrid coming in. That could be a good option. That could be a good option to the Virtus or the Slavia for that matter. We'll be driving it towards the end of this month, and we'll have an opinion for you. I'll be driving it very very soon, so I'll have an opinion for you on the Honda City Hybrid. That could be a good choice. Again, great statement also because it's got the hybrid powertrain, which means it will be more efficient, you get better range, and the Honda City is not a bad car at all today as well. It's a good option for that matter. So I think that could be your only other option where sedans are concerned. But yeah, like I said, do wait for us to provide you with an opinion, an informed opinion on the Honda City Hybrid, and that should be coming to us. We'll be driving that end of, like I said, end of April, with all of our reviews out in the first week of May.
What interesting question. When are you driving the Hilux? Can we expect a pickup shootout?
Well, I don't know when I'm driving the Hilux. From what I understand, is that they don't really have any media cars in their fleet at this point in time, and we're hoping that happens soon. I'm looking forward to driving the Hilux and to seeing what the fuss is all about. I was also expecting them to price it a little more than the 33 lakh rupee ex-showroom price when they came out at with the Hilux, which is quite interesting, quite attractive also for that matter. Not too expensive, not too cheap either. It has nicely sat within that bracket between the Innova and the Fortuner. But that also begs the question now as to why is the Fortuner as expensive as it is? Because again, it's the Hilux platform at the end of the day. You are not getting a superior off-road package compared to the Hilux for that matter. So again, it raises a lot of questions about the Fortuner and why would you need a Fortuner if the Hilux can deliver far better utility, looks nicer, has got equally good off-road abilities, maybe better also for that matter, and of course that practicality quotient. I mean, I drive a truck, I own a truck, I've got a Isuzu D-Max, and I love it. And there's just so much more you can do with a pickup than you can do with an SUV.
All right. Tushar Gokhale wants to know, he's looking for a new car to replace his 2014 model of the Honda City. Should he go for the Nexon EV by keeping his City, or fully replace the City with an SUV?
Very interesting question, Tushar. Very interesting question. And my recommendation to you would be to keep the Honda City. Do not sell that at this point in time. Going for the Nexon EV. You will be one of the earlier trendsetters, for using an electric vehicle. I think you would enjoy what the Nexon EV has to offer. The only reason I'm telling you to keep the Honda City is for those long distance trips. If you ever do any of those, then the Honda City becomes a practical package. The Nexon EV may not fulfill that role at this point in time, but for your everyday driving purposes, I think the Nexon EV is a phenomenal SUV, absolutely brilliant package. It doesn't have phenomenal range at this point in time, but on a full charge, I guess you could at least use it for 3 days, maybe 4 days at best, in urban conditions, if you're just driving from home to work for that matter. And I think that's good enough as well. So yeah, I would recommend. I mean, be an early adopter, get out, buy an Exxon EV, use it, enjoy it. It is a good product at the end of the day. Do not fall for a lot of the stories that came out about the Nexon EV charge not being adequate. Yes, it's got a small battery pack. We really can't expect much of range from it for that matter. But for what it has to offer, I think it's a good package overall. It's very impressive driving dynamics. It's very impressive acceleration performance on that electric motor. So I've enjoyed driving it for that matter, and I would recommend that to you very, very highly. Now, if you were to fully replace your city with an SUV, then there are plenty of choices that you can go in for, depending on what your budget is, to be honest, because you've got everything from the Kushaq, the Taygun, the Creta, the Seltos, and so many more that you could replace the city with in terms of an SUV. It will all depend on what your requirements are, what your budget is, what you want to use that SUV for. But like I said, my recommendation: keep your city, and of course, continue and buy the Nexon EV.
All right. Every car dealer is talking about shortage of chips. Shortage of chip. Ashish wants to know what is that chip?
Okay, so Ashish, the shortage of chips is semiconductor chips. Now, semiconductor chips are essentially these small chips that relay bits of information between various components. So, if let's say in an electric vehicle, a battery had to communicate with the electric motor, or with the battery management system, or with multi-information display, or what have you, it would do this via a chip, right? Now, these chips during the pandemic, essentially what happened is that the demand for consumer durables, essentially laptops, smartphones, tablets, and various other devices like that, even medical equipment, kind of exploded. And that is one reason. Second part was that because we went into lockdown across the world, several factories were shut down. Semiconductor chips were not being manufactured, as a result of which there has been a massive shortage of these chips, which have effectively landed, for most industries. Semiconductors are used in any electronic device that you can think of today. Anything that has got electronics has got a semiconductor in it, enabling, well, communication between various systems in that device. And this shortage was exacerbated because of certain there was a fire, if I recall, in Taiwan at one of the factories. Another, the markets in Malaysia, another manufacturer in Malaysia went back into lockdown, and the factory was shut again. So this has created a huge backlog, while demand for electronics, like I said, laptops, tablets, smartphones, other devices, televisions, uh, what have you, those kind of exploded as well, because people were sitting at home, they had nothing else to do, nowhere to go to, and they're just buying electronics like, it was going out of fashion. And that has essentially led to a massive shortage of chips. This is essentially what the shortage these are the chips that I'm talking about, and this is what the shortage what has caused the shortage of these chips. The automotive industry now uses these semiconductor chips, again, like I said, to relay information between various components in a vehicle. Now, in a given vehicle, they could be anywhere between 7 to about 30 to 40 different semiconductor chips being used to relay information to and fro between various systems. Uh, so the number of semiconductors to be used is really high. The other part is that now another issue that's now cropping up is, of course, the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. A lot of rare earth minerals which are used in the manufacturing of semiconductor chips come in from Ukraine and from Russia as well. Also for battery components as well, there have been a lot of rare earth materials coming from both of these two countries, and because of the war going on over there right now, there is again a deficit of these rare earth minerals, which is now causing another shortage for the semiconductor industry. Automobiles are not top priority in terms of consumer usage at this point in time, and that's why a lot of the semiconductors are allotted towards the medical industry, towards aviation, towards the defense sector, and towards consumer durables. Largely, principal priority number one is, of course, consumer durables, and that's why the automotive industry is reeling under this shortage. At this moment, the backlog that exists is almost up to about a year before manufacturers are able to come up to full production and deliver a lot of these systems. So now, in the interim period, also what we're seeing is a lot of manufacturers have switched off certain functions where they did not have the semiconductor chips. So you might see certain cars, so you might get certain cars which just don't have the semiconductor, because of which there'll be certain functions that don't operate within the cars. Those ones that are, the least used systems for that matter, will be switched off. And at some point in the future, again, when the next generation of cars comes in, or when semiconductors are back again in stock, then those features will be incorporated into the cars once again.
All right. We'll take one last question, but is OD mid-size sedan shootout on the cards after what is launched, maybe?
Well, Mangesh, yes, we will certainly have a mid-size sedan comparison story. There are several cars in this segment right now, the 3 to 4 sedans in the segment, and they're all potentially very, very good sedans. With the, this will include, and they will all be new for that matter. Most of them will be new for that matter, excepting barring the Ciaz. You will have the Honda City Hybrid, you will have the Virtus, and you will have the Slavia. So that will be a very, very interesting comparison. So yes, do watch out for that. Uh, Safely to kind of give an estimate of when we would do this, I would assume sometime in towards the end of May or probably early June is when you will see that comparison out in overdrive.
All right. I think it's time for us to wrap up, but not before taking a look at what you have on the show for this week, tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Late last year, Volvo India announced its intentions to bring down a battery electric vehicle, a fully electric vehicle to its Indian market. And that's exactly what we have here on our first drive experience today. This is the XC40 Recharge. Volvo India has said that they will announce prices for the XC40 Recharge in the month of July. And of course, deliveries will begin soon thereafter. But here we are experiencing this on the Gurgaon Jaipur highway. Let's see what the XC40 Recharge has to offer.
This is the MG ZS EV 2022. Now, apart from the obvious visual differences, it's got a larger battery pack, it's got a little bit more power, it's got a little bit more tech inside as well. Can the updated MG ZS EV fit that role just a little bit better? We're going to find out.
The four-wheeler electric vehicle segment in India is quickly getting populated. Over the last couple of years, we've seen several new entrants coming out in the market with electric vehicles. What we are here to drive today at the Indy Karting circuit, this is the go-kart circuit, is one of BMW subsidiary companies, Mini, and this is their Mini Electric. I'm here to see just how exciting, how fun it is to drive the Mini Electric. So let's get on with it.
So it's an out-and-out electric show tomorrow at 1 p.m. and you can catch the repeat telecast on Sunday at 12:30 and 8 p.m. as well.
Yeah, in fact,
That's
it's the first time in the history of Overdrive, Sony, I believe that on the coming issue, on the cover, we will have all electrics, not a single ICE, maybe not a single ICE on that cover.
There are
Which is
so
great.
many in the country today. We have
Absolutely,
so
there
many
are quite a
stories.
few. In fact, I was just seeing the numbers that FADA released, which is registration for electric vehicles, and they're literally going through the roof. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles being sold in the country, or at least being registered month on month. The four-wheeler segment, not so much, but the two-wheeler segment is just exploding in a big way. The four-wheelers also, nonetheless. I mean, I was quite impressed to see the number of bookings and deliveries that MG is getting out, and doing with this ZSEV, especially now that they've got the second generation ZSEV. Tata Motors, I mean, Tata Motors is just going from strength to strength. Recently, they bagged another order from, I think it was EESL, for about 2,500 electric vehicles, Nexon EVs and Tigor EVs for that matter. And there are other fleet requirements coming in also for that matter. So the electric space is absolutely buzzing. And yes, like I said, for the first time in the history of Overdrive, in our 23-year-long history, we will have all electric vehicle cover.
And another, actually, there's this question that I wanted to ask you. Whoever's buying an electric car today, it's their second car, right? It's not the only car that they can manage to have today, right? Because you do need to go outstation, you do need a lot more range, right?
Well, yes and no. For a lot of people, that's also their first car at this point in time. An electric vehicle is still their first car, also, because not everybody necessarily wants to head out outstation driving there. Keep that in mind. When we talk about driving outstation, we're talking about probably driving up to Goa. Most consumers wouldn't make a longer trip than about 600 kilometers. And if people do that very often, then possibly you require an electric. You require a IC powered vehicle. But today you can drive from Bombay all the way up to Mahabaleshwar, for instance, which is about a good 350, 400 kilometers, 350 kilometers away from Bombay. with an electric vehicle, because you've got charging stations along the way where you can keep topping up, whether it's on the Bobby Pune Expressway, in Pune itself, in between Pune and Mahabaleshwar. So all of this is feasible at this point in time. I'm assuming even Mahabaleshwar may very soon have charging stations, at least one or two charging stations where you can charge your electric car battery, which means outstation trips are feasible. As journalists, we've already tried doing this. We've seen the story last month. We've done the Chandigarh to Manali route, and I know of other journalists who also tried this. I know of another colleague who has done a Bombay to Chennai in an electric vehicle and did it pretty successfully. Of course, he had to charge at dealerships along the way, but most dealerships today, keep in mind, all manufacturers, in fact, have opened up their showrooms or their dealerships, and are allowing any vehicle of any sort, of any manufacturer, to charge at the charging stations that they've installed in their showrooms, which is a fantastic initiative and well appreciated, because effectively you can do that. There are fast charging destinations though along these routes. There is a high density of charging stations, DC charging stations also along various cities. However, in various cities, whichever part of India for that matter, if you go Western region, essentially Western India, Northern India, and Southern India has got a high density of electric vehicle chargers, DC chargers for that matter. But it just requires a little bit of planning. It's not something you can just get up and say, I'm going to head out tomorrow, and get up.
Yeah.
It's not like you wake up at 6 in the morning and say, okay, that's it, 6:30, I'm heading out to Goa in an electric vehicle. That's not what's going to happen. You need to plan this and you need to ensure that you know where you're going and what the state of chargers are essentially along your route. So, no, for a lot of people now, electric vehicles are becoming their first preference and their first choice and the only car that they own. It is no longer just the second vehicle like we believed it would be, about a year ago. It's taken just about a year for people to change their perceptions and realize that they are absolutely comfortable using electric vehicle, because in urban conditions, that's all you need. For any other long distance travel, for that matter, I mean, you would rather fly there than actually drive down there. How many people actually take their cars
Actually,
on a long road trip?
also given the fuel prices are going through the roof right now, I guess that it would be an ideal time to go for a EV as well, right?
Yes and no. Again, like I said, lots of challenges around this. It depends on usage and how you want to use them, whether you want to use them. It certainly makes a lot more sense to pick up an electric vehicle at this point in time, because you might some time ago we had done a comparison story between an electric vehicle and an ICE to understand whether the cost of ownership between these two, what was the kind of difference. And from there, what we realized was the cost of the cost of ownership, the difference between an ICE and an EV was not very great. The EV, of course, being marginally more expensive. But now with the fuel prices going up the way they are, and I mean, rumors. I mean, they're running around like wildfires that petrol prices or the fuel prices, petrol prices will go up to almost 130, 140 per liter, maybe climb up even higher up to 150 rupees per liter. But and if that was the case, it actually may negate the fact that an ICE is a better choice than an EV. Keep in mind, the advantage for an EV is that you have much lower maintenance costs, much lower maintenance costs. No changing of lubes, no changing of filters, nothing that is required in an electric vehicle other than to check and clean your braking systems. That's it. Nothing else is required. So, in that sense, the cost savings for an EV today, it's quite possible could be almost the same as an ICE, maybe cheaper in some cases.
All right. So on that note, we'll take your leave for this week. We'll be back next week if everybody is there, because it's a long weekend as well, but which
Well,
we just
yes, it's going to be a
realized.
long weekend. So just saying, we still got a couple of minutes, and I think it's a good time to get out of grouse, and probably you might get a few questions around this also. And one of that's had to do with the news about the Ministry of Transportation coming out with that regulation to mandate 6 airbags in every vehicle that manufacturers going to offer in India, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. It's unwarranted at this point in time. I think it's asking for a little bit too much, because what the ministry does not realize is also that providing 6 airbags in a vehicle is going to increase the cost of vehicles significantly. You're talking about not just the airbag, but also sensor systems and various other systems that are required for the operation of those airbags. The sensors are on the interior of the car, they are also on the outsides of the car. All that needs to change. Of course, the wiring loom will change depending on those airbags where they're placed. So the cost of the vehicle will increase substantially. What I think is also important at the same time is that the ministry should have mandated the usage of seat belts in every single seat in the car. Along with that, they should have had buzzers, and they should have mandated this first. We have a habit of skipping the queue trying to jump ahead. But what they should have mandated, what the ministry should have mandated, was to put in that safety buzzer, the warning buzzer when you don't put your seatbelt on, and that cannot be switched off until unless you utilize your seatbelt. That would have been very important. That would have at least got people to start using seatbelts first. If you're not using a seatbelt, chances are that your airbags are not going to function. Even if they function, you are going to land up in a much, much more dangerous situation than otherwise. So, yes, the ministry's kind of jumped the gun. I believe they've kind of gone too far ahead. And while a lot of people are talking about how yes, it's fantastic, six airbags are absolutely essential, people in India do not use seat belts. That should have been mandated first. Second clause, get our roads in order. From what we are seeing right now in Bombay, for instance, there's a massive campaign that is being led by the Commissioner of Police about wrong side driving or riding, where the FIRs are being registered against those violating or other creating that offense. What I would like to know is once those FIRs are filed in, what is the follow up and what is the action being taken against these people? Uh, because riding and driving down the wrong side, it is singularly one of the biggest threats to any road user. It is frustrating. It is aggressive. It creates aggression. It is stressful, and there is absolutely no reason why you should be riding down the wrong side of the road or driving down the wrong side of the road. Very often on our road trips, we've seen trucks barreling down the highway on the wrong side, going flat out. You get stuck in a jam. Everybody think it's their prerogative to get onto the wrong side of the road and skip the jam. Just try and get ahead of the queue, create a bigger jam, lose more fuel. It just creates all sorts of problems. I mean, we are a senseless country. We are senseless road users, uneducated, illiterate, ignorant also for that matter. And these are the issues that the Ministry of Transportation should have addressed first. We seem to assume that just putting six airbags into a car will solve all our problems. I don't think that is the case. Not when your fundamentals, your absolute basis of driving is entirely wrong. Ridiculous licensing regulations in the country, almost non-existent. Traffic systems that are abused by consumers randomly. It is dangerous. I mean, I take my daughter out for a class on a scooter, and it's a half a kilometer journey down the road, and it is a dangerous ride. It's extremely dangerous to be with her on the scooter, and every time I get out on the scooter with her, I fear for what might happen next. Simply because there are people breaking traffic lights left, right, and center. There are people coming down the wrong way across every street, every corner. People have absolutely no idea where to turn into a lane from. Where do you hang a right turn? Where do you hang a left turn? How far or how deep into the road should you go? Just so many basic issues. At roundabouts, people randomly going around whichever direction they would want to. There is a way to use a roundabout, a circle, that most people know it as. Well, people are just with just randomly using any and every direction. It is very, very disturbing. It is very, very dangerous, and I think the ministry needs to address these issues first. Nitin Gadkari should have been addressing this first rather than trying to get to this step of advocating or rather mandating airbags in every single car. All this does is increases the cost of
Right.
the
Yeah.
vehicle. It does not guarantee at any level that our roads will be safer.
But what I have to bring in one point, if you're in Mumbai, you have the MTP app, and the MTP app does allow you to take a photograph of any kind of violation. If someone's not wearing a seatbelt, if someone has jumped a signal. So, as citizens, I think it is our duty as well to help, make those violations quite apparent to the
Which is also a
governing bodies
ridiculous,
as well, so that they can do their
which
job.
is also a ridiculous system. Sorry, hang on. It's also a very, very ridiculous system. Are you going to be using the phone while you're driving or while you're riding?
You won't, you
You
won't.
won't.
But if there
So
is a car coming
where?
from the other
How
side
and
and
where?
you're
How and
stuck,
where?
yeah,
You are
yeah,
assuming that you are standing at a traffic light, not when I'm driving
yeah,
through a traffic light and don't expect to see traffic jumping into my lane.
true.
You're not sitting on the phone to do that. Yes, dash cams will help, but again, I do not know at the end
Yeah.
of the day what if I make a complaint, if I raise a complaint to traffic police of Mumbai on Twitter. The standard response that comes from there is, we are thank you for your
Yeah,
comment and thank you for your feedback. We are looking into the matter. Please report to the nearest police station the offense.
police station.
And that's all sorts of nonsense. Beyond
Yeah.
that, what exactly happens? What is the repercussion? What is the police force been doing? We have no clue whatsoever. Commissioner of Police Sanjay Pandey has done a fantastic job by
Yeah,
this
yeah.
initiative, the wrong side driving initiative, ban the wrong side driving initiative. It's absolutely brilliant. Yes, it's high time someone took a look at it, and when we appreciate the fact that he's taking a look at it. But I would like to know what are the next steps. What are people actually doing? Another clause, another rule that also came out today was actually yesterday was the 3 month ban, or rather 3 month revocation of your license if you're not wearing a helmet on a two wheeler. Again, fantastic, great if you are a developed country, and people feared the fact that if your license was not there, your license was probably hooked up to your vehicle, it would be caught on a CCTV somewhere, and you would essentially be fined in a European country for driving because you do not have a license or your license was revoked. In India, how does it matter? It's been, I would assume, it's been almost a decade, if not longer, since when I've been stopped and asked for a license. Keep in mind, Nitin Gadkari some time back came out with this clause that you do not have to carry your license on you.
Yeah.
You do not have to carry any documentation on you. What is the basis of revoking the license if nobody is going to be there to check and see whether you are valid, or you're legally permitted to drive or ride your vehicle on Indian roads? You don't wear a helmet, you'll still go scot free. Nothing's going to happen to you. The 3 month ban is not going to amount to anything. What I'm seeing
What
is
happens to
absurd
people in
laws,
Pune? Then
absurd regulations.
it'll lead to a lot of it'll lead to less traffic in Pune, no? Because everybody is riding without helmets there, and they fought for their right to ride without helmets.
Absolutely not. Not only the cops come down on the roads, they stop the vehicle and check if there is an infringement against that particular person, whether his license has been revoked or not for those 3 months. But none of this is happening at any level, because Ministry of Transportation has also instituted another clause that no police officer can stop you and ask you for a license. Now you see the irony of this entire regulation. On the one hand, the police are not allowed to do their job or to check for licenses. On the other hand, you say I will suspend your license for 3 months. You cannot use. Who is going to adhere to this regulation? The guy on the street is not that dumb. He knows that there is absolutely no way of checking this. The odds of him ever being stopped to check for licenses or for anything. The only thing cops ever stop anybody for, and this is largely to harass two-wheeler riders, is for the helmet clauses, which is great. But yes, they need to do it a little more systematically. They need to do it in a better way rather than creating those nakabandis and disrupting the entire flow of traffic. But it's a good initiative. Also, I'd appreciate that what they're doing for that matter. But in a similar manner, they also need to do it for people who are not wearing seatbelts. But apart from that, there really isn't any time anywhere where they can actually where they randomly stop people and check licenses and say, "Are you licensed to drive it? Are your papers in order? Do you have your insurance? Do you have a registration? Have you done your PUC?" Another archaic system. But if these three documents or these three permits are not there along with you, how many officers on the street on the beat are actually checking for this? I don't think anybody is.
All right. On that note, we'll take your leave this week, and we'll catch up soon.
Any questions? Any
Then what?
questions? Any questions?
No,
So I'm sure someone
not
would have commented. Someone's
regarding
commenting.
this.
Someone will be
No,
commenting.
not
Wait for a minute.
regarding this.
We wait for if you give them a minute, there will be comments coming up. I'm sure for that. I'm sure about that. But guys, yes, you can always drop me a message on Twitter. Just search for Bertrand D'Souza on Twitter, on Instagram as well. I keep posting all of this and more. And there are quite a few, other handles that deal with these social issues, especially with regards to roads, traffic. Do go there, follow these guys, comment, put up your opinions, engage in discussions, because this is essentially what will force the government to enhance their systems, to improve legislation, to improve the systems on ground, and to hopefully create a better, safer environment for all of us. On that note, have a nice weekend. Grab those beers, grab some popcorn. There's some fantastic movies on Netflix as well. Chill out, have fun.
See you.